particular welcome to new councillors who may be with us at the council.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome to the committee, and hope you can enjoy it really and contribute.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any apologies?
No apologies.
No, and you can go on the table. It looks like everybody's here, which is good news. Late items to be introduced by the chair. Well, I'm not aware of any unless I'm going to have something curveball dropped on me now. Okay, so there's no late items. So we'll go to the minutes of the declarations of interest. Sorry, not missed that out. Declarations of interest. Does anybody have any? I suppose I don't know if I should declare this, but I will. Been elected to the board of Derby Homes as a director. Yeah. So I've not sat on any board meetings yet next week.
Chair, can I ask, is this a standard time for this committee meeting? This is my first meeting, so I just want to.
It's usually at 10, I think.
It's 10:30 this one.
It is, yes.
So it's not an evening meeting,
No.
it's been always a daytime meeting.
It's always been a daytime meeting, yes.
Can I ask why?
You can ask why. I can't answer it. I don't know why.
I don't know exactly why. It's in the schedule of meetings that's agreed at the AGM, but it's always been a 10:30 meeting while I've been here.
Yeah.
Can we move it to the evening?
I suppose we could look at that as after we've gone through this. Well, we could explain.
That should be on the committee.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to consider it and put it to a vote, but you know, it has always been in the day. It has. To me, I'm a bit. If it's not broken, I fix it. If it works, but it might not be convenient to everybody. But daytime is sometimes more convenient to other people than the evening. When I take a day off work to attend these meetings. Yeah.
Same here, that's why I raised it. It's my first time off on this first person committee, so I just wanted to know why it's more like in the daytime, and is there any reason behind it?
It's one I had to speak with Alex about, but as far as I'm aware, it's agreed at the AGM. So those dates and times are set for the municipal year. So
They are. Well, we can still do some background and find out some background.
Yeah.
And it's something we could look at changing in the future, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. And the minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of April 2023. For those that were there present, and I know a few in this room were, if anybody's got any comments, or if I go through page 1, page 2, page 3, and page 4. There's no comments. So can we take those minutes as read? Thank you. Right. Item 5, colleague health and wellbeing update. And it's over to.
Thank you. I've brought Carl Ward with me, who's the Occupational Health Manager. So we're going to do a bit of a double act in presenting this report to you today because it covers both of our work areas. So I'll start the report off, then hand over to Carl for his section. So this is a standard report that comes to the Personnel Committee, where we cover an update on the colleague health and wellbeing approach the Council has continued to take during 22-23. And we want to show and look ahead to the future direction of 23-24 as part of this report. We'll also provide to you the headlines of the Council's attendance management outturn for 22-23. We're asking Personnel Committee to note the considerable colleague health and wellbeing offer that's available to the Council's colleagues and the importance of supporting colleagues to take personal responsibility for their own wellbeing. At 2.2, we're asking you to note that from the 1st of June 2023, the Council's moved from an externally hosted absence reporting platform to colleagues contacting their manager if they are absent from work due to ill health. And at 2.3, to note the Council's attendance management performance of 13.34 FTE days lost for 22-23, and along with our future focus for 23-24 on health and wellbeing. As part of the supporting information is where we first of all present to you the occupational health and wellbeing approach. So I'll hand over to Carl for that section.
Thanks, Adele. Thanks, Jack. So thanks for allowing me to be here today to share the update from the occupational health and wellbeing approach that we've that we have already started and taken forward to 23-24. So Personnel Committee have regularly received updates about the ongoing work of Occupational Health and Wellbeing Service and the continued development of the Council's health and wellbeing approach. Council provide an in-house doctor-led occupational health service. We moved from a nurse-led appointment service in 2022, and we did that both to improve the quality and advice and reports written from occupational health to help managers receive the advice that they need in a timely manner to move forward. People that may be struggling within role, and they are qualified physicians, so they're qualified in the full range of the occupational health remit, so they can do all the work carried out that we need. The referring manager now receives the full occupational health report within 24 hours of the appointment, and that's to support them to manage the absence quickly and efficiently. And as we know, we want to get people back into work. Work's a good thing, and that's what we encourage through the reporting process. The Occupational Health Service continues to perform well against service level agreements, delivering appointments within 5 to 10 days of a receipt of the referral. I'm really proud of it, as this service delivers a local benchmarks where appointments are offered within a 25 days period. So anybody that's off will be waiting 5 to 10 days with us, as opposed to locally at 25 days. In addition to providing advice on pre-employment checks for successful candidates and referrals for existing colleagues, including those absent from work due to ill health, the occupational health team also provide a face-to-face statutory health surveillance provision for several of our job roles. And what that is where hazards are identified, we are statutorily required to carry out health surveillance to check and make sure that these hazards aren't making health worse, and it's a vital role to play. So in 2022, a total of 2,863 appointments were offered by the service, and I've broken those down for you. So of the ones offered, 1,832 was the health surveillance opportunities, and 1,031 health assessments, including for absent colleagues. So that's not just people who are off, that's opportunities for people who may be struggling in work, have problems that they need help with, and when we can support them remain in work. An integral part of our wellbeing offer is the Employee Assistance Programme, which is externally hosted. Colleagues can access information on a range of services from health to financial matters, and that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our usage for the council is currently at 3.9%, above an industry average of 1.4% for the year ending March 2023. And again, really proud of that, as it shows the promotion we've done and colleagues are taking up the offer within the council. And we've great news, we've extended our arrangement for the service for another 2 years up to May 2025, so that provision remains as it is. A total of 112 employees were provided with counselling support during April 22 to March 23, each with an opportunity to access up to 8 counselling sessions, which is a significant benefit to make available to our colleagues. The average take-up, which was pleasing, was 7 counselling sessions each. And the most popular format for the session was telephone. We have noticed a switch since the pandemic, and more is being utilised on telephone, which is great. The top 3 reasons for accessing counselling sessions were anxiety was number 1, women's health was number 2, and family reasons was number 3. Work-related issues accounted for 28%, whilst personal issues were 72%. So that's where people have rang and explained the primary reason for the call. Is it work related or is it personal circumstances that they can help with? A further positive development is that since last July, colleagues, family members who live in the same household as them can also access the full range of support. So that's the full as the employees get full support available. We've been running a series of health and wellbeing campaigns this year with specific theme each month. And we're working with partners around the NHS on that. So January, we highlighted the Dry January campaign. February was focused on financial wellbeing. We all know with the cost of living implications. And March was men and women's health promotion, working with our partners at Live Well, promoting health screening. And in May, we focused on Mental Health Awareness Week, as everyone's probably aware. That's a national campaign. That's mine. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you, Phil.
So, in terms of absence reporting changes, since the 1st of June 2023, colleagues now ring their manager if they are unwell, rather than ringing an externally hosted absence reporting line. A station that managers need to keep going with a colleague to keep that continual engagement, and to kind of help with encouraging the colleague back to work. So early intervention and continuing that dialogue is really crucial for us with the internal solution that we now put forward. Attendance management performance for 2022-23. The council's performance on attendance for the last financial year is shown below in the table of directorates. There is a slight increase on the previous year's performance of 12.81 FTE days lost, as we've come in this last year at 13.34. You can see the directorates split and break down there between each section to show their FTE day lost per employee. So what's going to be our future focus for 23-24? We're redefining, as Carl says, our wellbeing strategy, and this will form an integral part of our council people strategy. The recently established People and Culture Programme Board will oversee the development and implementation of the strategies, underlining the importance of positive health and wellbeing for our colleagues. Our prevention-focused wellbeing approach supports our vision of ensuring that health and wellbeing is embedded in everything we do and championed at all levels and across all functions. We recognise that wellbeing does not start and end in the workplace, and I think we can see that from some of the occupational health information from Carl. We want to empower our colleagues to make informed choices and engage in positive health and wellbeing behaviours so that we can thrive at the council and beyond. We will be exploring future actions during 23-24, and some of those actions are the potential to develop our existing mental health champion network into an overarching wellbeing champion network, so that colleagues can also signpost on a range of health and wellbeing issues. It's not just always about the mental health. Improve the understanding of occupational health and wellbeing and developing a culture of wellbeing by regular team discussions to ensure that our comprehensive wellbeing offer is understood. That's going to be complemented by a wellbeing programme that will run throughout the year. To provide appropriate guidance based on national campaigns and relevant research in line with our NHS partners. Carl's already given you a flavour of some of the ones that we focused on for this year so far, and we'll maximise all opportunities where we can to collaborate with our partners. We're going to provide the support and tools needed to make healthy choices so that our colleagues can continue to take responsibility for improving their own health and wellbeing and accountability for them attending with workplace. Developing wellbeing activity calendars and all activity associated with transactions will be supported and identified by the champion network that we plan to take forward. So in addition, services will continue to work and focus on relevant actions to reduce the absence levels. An analysis of average working days lost due to sickness absence has been carried out. We're looking at our local data and looking at that within the national context. Future work on this initial analysis is underway, with a working group established to bring together good practice and actions to support the reduction of absence over the next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that complete?
Yeah, that completes the report. So if you've got any questions.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Carr.
Champion network.
Yes.
What is that? Can you elaborate on that? What are the partners and what is a champion network? How far it's going to go in the city?
Yeah.
No problem. So, Councillor Khan, at the moment we've got a mental health network champion that's basically internal staff for support. So anybody that's involved in mental health crisis, they know where to reach out for support. That currently is where the mental health network sits. And they don't go out to any partners, etc. at the moment. What we are looking at doing with the wellbeing programme is changing that, where they're still trained in mental health first aid, by extending it to a wellbeing champion role. So we signposted all things, including mental health, including our menopause support, including our MSK support. So we're looking at expanding that, and that will be along with hopefully the NHS programme. So the NHS currently with a similar programme for 12 months, and we're looking at tagging with our partners.
Councillor Bonser.
Thank you. Thank you both for the report, and it's really encouraging to see those activity days and those focuses each month on different aspects of wellbeing. I think that's really positive. Just looking at the days lost per employee, there's quite a big difference between the days lost, for example, in corporate compared to commuters and plays. And I wonder whether that working group's going to take a deep dive into those figures. It would be interesting to know whether for example, MSK is an issue in one area and stress and anxiety in another. And it would be good to have that information back to the committee at the future meeting.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Bonds. Perhaps if I pick that one up. Absolutely, as Adele has referenced in the report, we have this working group that's set up to do some deep dive work. We've got our next meeting tomorrow, in fact, and part of the role of that group is to form a bit of an action plan, as we've referenced in the report, drawing on some of the good practice that happened already across the organisation, because there's some really good work that's happening, as I know you're aware, in terms of managing people's health and well-being, and how we can continue to share some of those examples of good practice. And part of that working group also will be to do some, perhaps I've used the phrase sort of thematic deep dive. So to your point, have we got particular areas where heavy musculoskeletal absence is higher in some areas, and then trying to get underneath what might be the causes of that? Is it what people traditionally see as all those sort of former manual working roles, or is it people who are working in laptops? Exactly. So it's getting underneath some of that. So very much the idea is to take a bit of a thematic approach on the deep dive. Yeah.
So I'll be able to bring that back, Chair.
Sure.
Yeah.
Certainly to a future committee.
We can ask for that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Why would we not? Councillor Holmes.
Thank you. I've been on this committee for a few years, as you know, and it's really disappointing to see this jump, because we have been going down and down and down. So you think you come with all these fantastic ideas, and we say, "Oh God, this is brilliant." Is there any? Is there any reason why this is? Because this has now gone above the average national, I believe now. Even with all of the work, and I know it's a lot of work, and I know it's great work. What can be done more is what I'm trying to say. Is it worth then splitting it in sections? So are there people who continue to be absent rather than somebody who's just occasionally absent? Is there any focus being done on why the individuals are continually absent?
What we do, it might be helpful to explain that we have the quarterly HR data come through that's provided to all the HR advisors. That's split by short-term absence, long-term absence, all of the absence reasons, so that we can highlight there whether it's musculoskeletal. We have a separate stress report so that we can see if stress is an indicator or depression. And so what the HRAs then do, share that information with their heads of service and come up with an action plan. And what they need to do then is focus on some of these specifics that come out within their service areas. Now, that being said, that has been being done in Councillor Holmes, as you're aware, and that's why we're wanting to take this more thematic approach across the council to see if there are other interventions that we can bring in to kind of help support some of these key themes that we're picking up. Because whilst it may not be a lot in one service area, it may be looking at it as a whole across the council. It's something that we need to pick up thematically. So in terms of long-term and short-term absence, I think as well, we have seen as we've come out of the pandemic, there are a lot of people that are still waiting for operations, waiting for referrals. We're kind of finding that we're having people now that have become more ill since not being able to get the interventions they need from the NHS. So we've been backing that, I think, as well as an organisation, which I think has increased our non-attendance at the moment. We do focus on short term. I'm hoping that with the new internal solution that we've put in place, that will help with managers being accountable and in control of the absence, rather than ringing the external provider, not having contact with somebody for a couple of days. They'll be the first point of contact, and we'll be able to, okay, you've got a migraine, I'll expect to see you back at work tomorrow. Then if you've taken your medication, have you spoken to your doctor, those kind of conversations. So encouraging that person back and having that initial first time engagement, I'm hoping will have an impact on these absences that should be short term, that probably stretch out a little bit longer than they necessarily need to have done. So we are working on it, and then hopefully over the next year with this action group and working group, we'll be able to have some actions that we can take forward corporately and make managers and heads of service accountable for the attendance in their areas.
You ever speak to other councils or
Yes, local authorities.
local authorities
Yeah.
about, you know, the ones maybe with lower activity and work on what they're doing as well?
And I'm a member of the Derbyshire Personal Officers Group, so that's always on the agenda in terms of what people are doing to support absence and any interventions. So we share best practice as part of those groups quite widely, and also share the outturns and I must say that it's been a theme that absence has been going up for everyone across the authorities just recently, and then this last year.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Obviously, very much to see both of you. So I've got the figures that give us that 112 employees provided counselling support through last year. For me, I see that as quite a positive thing that people are willing to reach out. I always think there's still that stigma attached around the idea of asking for counselling. I think the fact that 112 employees have been willing to come forward for that and more than in other areas, I see that as a positive thing for us. But what I wondered is, have we had any feedback from those 112 employees about the support they received? Did they feel it was positive? Did they have any suggestions on ways to improve it? Would they recommend it to other employees? What feedback have we had from people that have had those sessions?
We have feedback, so we get a management information pack through, and that comes quarterly. I've asked for it monthly now, because I think it's a valid point. It's very important. We're currently at 77.8% satisfaction. And I'm always looking to improve that. So we've got a dedicated account manager with the externally hosted DAP, and I meet monthly with them as well. We are pushing that because it is. We want to embed that in the well-being. We want people to talk to each other. We want colleagues to talk. It's not always about that management engagement. It's reach out, where everybody just talk, just speak to each other. And if you've received some great support, 7 out of 10 people who've contacted have found it good. So yeah, really, really positive on that, and happy to bring that information back to me.
Yeah, brilliant. Do we know whether, sort of, for people that have come forward, let's say in the last year that didn't come forward before, do we know if that's ever been recommended to them by a colleague that has come forward previously? Do we know if there's those kind of recommendations going on, or is it not something we can really measure?
It's not something we can measure at the moment, but our mental health champion network that we're looking at introducing, the wellbeing champion network, we would encourage that in each service level to give us data to find that out. But I'm a big believer in word of mouth as well, that we need to encourage as a culture, as an organisation, to reach out. You've had a great service, and 7 counselling sessions is fantastic. I think currently Trent BTS are currently on an 8-week waiting list, so that to receive that 7 sessions is great. So we want to promote it, but not we don't measure them.
And one other question, if I may, Chair. We also, the last couple of weeks, have been quite a bit of discussion around working from home and council staff working from home. How do we feel that may impact on some of the figures? Because to share kind of a first experience when I worked from home, I struggled at the time during the first lockdown. I was really struggling. I think now we're obviously not in lockdown periods, but people are struggling for an array of different reasons. And the report mentions how many of the reasons people coming forward are personal reasons. It was easy to hide struggling, or it was easier to hide struggling working from home, because if you can hide it on a half-an-hour Zoom call in the morning, you don't have to address it for the rest of the day. How are we monitoring and measuring staff who may be finding it easier to hide it because they're not necessarily face-to-face with colleagues 9 to 5, they're more sort of working from home basis? How are we addressing things like that?
I'm happy to chip in as well. Yeah,
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for perhaps I start off, and then Carl, I'm sure will answer you. Excuse me. Thank you for that question. I think we, as a council over the last 3 years, we, as you'll be aware, councillor and other councillors, we've put in a lot of energy and effort, rightly so, to check in with our colleagues who have been working remotely. Obviously, many of our colleagues haven't. Many of our frontline colleagues, haven't been working remotely at all. But for those of us who have, we've put a lot of time and energy in, rightly, to doing that wellbeing check and to do that check-in. And if you say it's a half-hour Teams call or Skype call, is that enough? And as we're continuing to discuss our future ways of working and our hybrid working, because we're developing a hybrid working statement that sort of formalises some of the good practice that we've been doing over the last couple of years. One of the key parts of that is, again, we talked quite a bit about management accountability in the presentation so far, is around reinforcing that role and colleague accountability of checking in with each other. And if you do work in a hybrid way, not only doing everything, remotely through the technology, which is great, but, managers having one-to-ones in person with colleagues or team meetings in person as well, so that there is that opportunity to have some of that face-to-face interaction. And also, along with the work that Carl and Adele have been describing about our overall wellbeing programme, we are really continuing to communicate out with Carl around, that reaching out, as you've talked about, the wellbeing support plans that we have in place, because people do face challenges in their lives, don't they? Whether that's work-based or, as we've seen, quite often personal. So I think we're doing a lot. We're not complacent, but we're continuing to make sure that we keep that focus on. Don't just rely on a quick check-in on the technology all the time. Have some of that face-to-face interaction. Carl, I don't know if you'd like to
add to that. Great question. And again, we have, as part of our wellbeing offer at the moment, we have what's called wellbeing support plans. So we'd encourage that in a one-to-one discussion. You're having these discussions about, for example, working at home. If you notice somebody's not coming into certain meetings, or they're avoiding things, or they're not their usual self, just to send them a plan. Say, have a look, see what's available. And just echoing what Liz has said, we are reaching out on all things. I know the theme's been taught mental health, which is vitally important, but it's reach out all well-being. As we've seen, the cost of living's had a massive impact. So talk about everything, and then the support's there for you.
Thank you, Chair. Next on.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors have comments? I've got a few then. Firstly, the in-house idea with the reporting to the line manager, I think that's an excellent idea. I think it's a very positive move. You've avoided another party involved. The more people that are involved in something, in my experience in business, the more people don't take responsibility, the more there's a time delay, and the more information's bouncing around. And so that should hopefully show results and be really positive, and it's a good movement. Commend you for that. The wellbeing months. Do we know what we're planning for the future months? And if we do, could we be told now or not?
We do know.
Are they just preliminary?
They are preliminary. We're working with our Live Well partners, and because national campaigns are changing due to the national view, we haven't finalised them yet. And so there's a mental health awareness week that's planned for August, and we've got a mental support planned for August as well. But at the minute, it's what we're going to do.
I'd like to see one based on lifestyle, diet and food as well, to see, because there's a lot along that from where we can help ourselves. And that does include where we meet like this. We are creatures of, we're not lone creatures really. And so this isolation and working from home, it is good, and the balance can be good. But the bulk of it should be like this, where we meet face to face. And if we don't, over time, we become more withdrawn from that, and then it becomes a challenge to us. So it's somehow getting people to want this and getting something from these meetings and coming in, instead of working just from home. Although there is occasions, I understand. Yeah.
And I'd just add to that then, Chair, that the wellbeing support programme will be including the training package on healthy lifestyle and eating habits that will be included. That'll be within the 12-month programme that we do. Regularly on there.
Thank you. Any other comments, councillors?
Just looking at Chair, I'll be leaving about 10 minutes. So I've got a meeting at 11:30. Yeah.
Have you? We need to crack on there. Thank you, Adele. Thank you, Carl. Right, we'll move on to the next item. Item 6, the apprenticeship programme. Liz, you're going to lead this one.
Thank you, Chair. And this is a report that we bring regularly to Personnel Committee. My colleague Tanya Hay has written this report. She takes the lead on our apprenticeship programme, and she sends her apologies for this morning as she's elsewhere. So, excuse me, apologies if I, Chair, and apologies if I'm coughing slightly, so bear with me. So just like to take you through the headlines of the report, and obviously happy to pick up if there's any questions at the end. So the focus of the report really is to just provide a bit of an update position statement for the committee on our overall approach on apprenticeships and some further context on where we are currently with the apprenticeship programme, because this has been running for a number of years, and also to provide, as we usually do, a brief update on the levy payment that we've made to date and the drawdown to June. So perhaps if I can refer the committee to some of the supporting information in 4.1, just as a reminder of the context of the apprenticeship programme. The government brought in reforms in 2017 that required organisations with a pay bill of over £3 million annually to pay 0.5% of their pay bill into an apprenticeship levy digital account. So that's a requirement on also any other employer who hits that criteria. And so since that date, we have been paying into the levy digital account and drawing out funds to support the development of our colleagues, both those who are employed currently through apprenticeships and bringing in what we call new start apprentices as well. And the apprenticeship programme has continued to support the aims and objectives of the council plan. And Adele mentioned earlier in the report about the People and Culture Board that's been set up. The key part of that People and Culture approach is the development of our workforce, both currently and future planning for skills needed in the future. And obviously through apprenticeships and other development needs, we want to support our colleagues to maximise their opportunities to develop and grow and provide the best services they can for the residents of Derby. So perhaps, Chair, if I can also draw the committee's attention to 4.2 and some of the updates as to where we are currently in relation to some of the work that the apprenticeship team have been doing, working in collaboration across the organisation and with external partners. So if I just draw out perhaps a couple of the key headlines. At 4.21, we have a strong focus on our leadership and management apprenticeships. And in November 2018, we started working in partnership with the University of Derby to provide a range of leadership and management apprenticeship development. And you can see that works from level 3, 5, 6 and 7 through leadership and management qualifications. And this has been a very successful partnership to date since November 2018. And since then, we've had 130 colleagues take up this opportunity. We appreciate these often run for a couple of years, these management apprenticeships. And we've had 37 colleagues successfully completing and graduating from some of those apprenticeships so far, which is a great result. We also had a really strong and continue to have a really strong focus on apprenticeships in social care, as highlighted by Tanya at 4.22. And over the last year particularly, we've been working with Derby College in the city and our children's residential service team to support colleagues working in children's residential care to upskill and achieve mandatory qualifications that are required for those key roles, looking after children who are in residential care, really key roles there. So this partnership has also resulted in children's services being able to demonstrate that they have a very robust training programme in place. And we've had, positive feedback from Ofsted regarding this approach that we've been taking in our children's residential settings in the council. We're also working in relation to our social workers, working with Nottingham Trent University, both with children's and adult services to support developing our social workers to be qualified, because obviously we have some fabulous social workers working in the authority, and there are national challenges sometimes about recruiting and retaining social workers. So we're really proud of the work that we're doing with Nottingham Trent and our colleagues in the council to support the development of our social workers. So we now have 14 colleagues who've been enrolled on social work apprenticeships over the last 3 years. 5 have successfully graduated so far and completed their apprenticeships this January, and we'll be going out shortly for further expressions of interest for the next January cohort. So planning ahead and keeping that momentum going. 4.23, you'll also see again, just in terms of some of the range of apprenticeships we've been working through and continue to support in the council. You'll see that we've been working closely with our finance team to support an accountancy career pathway with a number of different levels of accountancy apprenticeship. But this isn't only about our existing workforce, as Tanya's gone out at 4.24. We obviously continue to keep a key focus on recruiting what we call new start apprentices, so apprentices who come in and join the council for a fixed period of time to carry out an apprenticeship. That's usually, not exclusively, but usually in business administration, accountancy, customer service, some digital areas and sort of grounds maintenance and grounds work And as I say, that's for a fixed period of time. And for those members of the committee who've been on the committee in the last municipal year, you'll recall that Simon Riley brought a proposal to the committee to increase the starting salary for new start apprentices, and the committee was supportive of that approach, which Tanya's referenced here at £9.18 an hour for the first year. So that is quite a significant improvement in the rate that we were paying our new start apprentices. And I think Tanya would, I don't have the figures, I'm afraid, Chair, but Tanya would attest that we've seen a greater interest in some of our new start apprenticeships because that salary rate has gone up, and we've seen a greater sort of range of candidates coming forward. And we're also pleased to say that whilst the new start apprenticeships are on a fixed term basis, we do work very hard within the council with our management colleagues across services to look at what opportunities there are for when those apprentices have finished their fixed term apprenticeship, how they might want to stay, hopefully, and progress their career within the council and find a permanent role. And we have currently a retention rate of 79% for those new start apprentices, which again, we're not complacent about, we want to see that increase, but we think that's pretty positive. And we recognise, of course, always that we're unlikely to achieve 100%. There may be people who do an apprenticeship with us, and it's a stepping stone perhaps to go on to further education on a full-time basis, not working at the same time. But we continue to try and build on that 79%. And then lastly, Chair, if I can just draw the committee's attention to a couple of points around the levy transfer. So again, just to remind committee members that under the apprenticeship levy funding rules, we can transfer up to 25% of our unspent levy to external employers who don't have their own levy funds to fund their apprenticeship programme. And our economic regeneration team, alongside the apprenticeship team, work closely to support in the city where we might be able to passport some of that money. And you'll see from the report that we do stipulate that if we were to transfer under the rules some of that funding, the employer must either trade within the city or provide services for residents who live in the city. So we're keeping it, clearly a Derby focus. We've currently got 10 employers where we've passported money supporting 24 apprentices, and we have transferred just over £150,000 to date in terms of that levy transfer. But again, we keep working with economic regeneration and businesses in the city to look at other opportunities for that. And probably last but not least, Chair, a couple of points about promotion of our apprenticeships and then the levy payments. Again, committee members who've seen these reports before will be aware that we continue to work very hard to promote the apprenticeship opportunities with events in the city, careers events, partnership events with training providers such as the University of Derby College. And we work actively with our communication and marketing team to make sure that people in the city are aware of the opportunities that we provide in the council for apprenticeships. And that plays into the next item on partnership working. We work closely across the region in things like the D2N2 Public Sector Compact Group and the East Midlands Apprenticeship Ambassadors, so that on a regional basis we're trying to maximise for the region as well as the city opportunities for apprenticeships. And we also work with a number of other key partners such as health colleagues in terms of joined up careers in terms of health and social care. And recently Tanya and the team have started a piece of work with the Open Doors Forum to see how we can promote apprenticeship opportunities to Black, African, Caribbean residents in the city to actually do some sort of targeted work there. And then finally, Chair, if I can draw out for the committee, I mentioned earlier about the levy payments, and that we've been making payments as other employers have since April 2017. So we have transferred just over £4.4 million, as we've been required to do by law, into this digital account since April 2017 until mid-June. And to date, we've drawn down just over 2.3 million of that to spend on our council colleagues. And we've also transferred, as I mentioned earlier, just over £155,000 to local employers to support their apprenticeships. We do experience, as most large employers do, some what we call expiration of the funds, because the funds are in the digital account for a rolling 24 months. So we pay into the account every month. What we pay in sits there for a rolling 24 months as we draw it down. But if at the expiry of any 24-month period, if we haven't used what we've paid in that 24-month period, that by law goes back nationally to the government sort of apprenticeship pot to help support apprenticeships across the country nationally. So it's still going into apprenticeships, but it goes into a sort of broader remit. So, Chair, if I can ask the committee to note the recommendations, it's 2.1 to 2.3. So just to note the apprenticeship programme approach that Tanya's outlined in the report. To note where we are in terms of the range of apprenticeship work that we're doing across a range of disciplines and the range of partners, and to note the levy payments to date, including the drawdown and the transfer to local employers in the city to support skills and apprenticeships in the city as a whole. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Liz. Councillors, comments or Councillor Knox?
So this is the first time I'm on this committee, might be wrong. You know about the apprenticeships, do you have any section of any Bain community on there? Do you take them on?
We absolutely do, Councillor Knowles. I'm sorry I don't have it in front of me as we speak, but we brought it to, I think it might be in the last committee or the committee before, we brought a report on what the DFE call widening our participation, so ensuring that we're closing the gap of aspects. And as I mentioned in the report, we've just started a piece of work with the Open Doors Forum about...
It's a big gap, as you say, it's massive gap. I'm quite happy to hear that.
Yeah. But I'm happy, perhaps you, Dominic, to recirculate the paper. There was a paper, Dominic, wasn't there, in either last committee, Councillor Knowles, or the one before, where we drew out some of those statistics. And so I just don't have them to hand.
Thank you. Councillors, any other comments? I've got a couple of minor questions. I think I know the answer, to be fair. Derby Homes, I know it's an Elmo. So does that mean that money that's left over, this 660,000, it just grates me to know it's gone back to the central government when I think it could have enhanced Derby. So I don't suppose that could be transferred to Derby Homes. So they are, or could it?
We are in and have been in discussion with Derby Homes. I believe, Councillor Evans, I will double check this with Tanya because she has more expertise in the rules than I have, but I believe it is possible potentially to transfer funds to an Almo. I will recheck that. We are in discussion with Derby Homes about what might be possible.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. I like that. Again, it's all very positive, this, and it's good. And apprenticeships and training, and it really, we're all learning. We've all got continued professional development, whatever you are. Everybody's learning, and on that basis as well, would councillors be able to access that?
I don't believe so, Chair, because with respect, councillors aren't employed by the council. Obviously, we are able to transfer some of the fundings we've talked about to employers in the city, but it is for employees of water councils, so I'm afraid not.
No, okay. And it's good to see the success on some of the levels. There's some level 7s there, as well as level 3s. We need people at all these levels. The more we have in-house people, the less we need the agencies. That would be my ethos going forward, is heading towards more staff that will. Not, you always need to be supplemented by external. I understand that, but core staff and you need staff in all the fields. Yeah.
We're definitely very keen, Chair, to continue to support the development of our colleagues, as I mentioned earlier. Apprenticeships is one of the key planks of us doing that. There are obviously sometimes other routes and other means, but thank you. I hope the committee is assured through the report from Talia that the continued work that you're doing to maximise spending the levy where we can to develop our colleagues, but also others in the city.
Any other comments, councillors? No. Okay. The next meeting then, I think it's the 14th of September. Should be confirmed, so it's going to be 10:30 on the 14th of September. Hopefully we'll see you all. And thank you everybody for attending and having a full attendance from councillor colleagues, because sometimes people do have difficult lives. It's difficult. Thank you. I look forward to meeting you all in a couple of minutes. Thank you.